Welcome to this week's episode of The Nero Show. In today's episode,
Dave Arthur reviews the S-Works SL8, and we don't think his praise of it is justified.
I'm going to try and sell Jesse on One by Kool-Aid Life. Let's see how I go.
Corey and Justin Williams change teams, and Legion have a bunch of new sponsors.
Run Club takes off, and Chris Horner's Corner. All right, let's get into it. You got your Vision Pros on?
Yeah.
Yep. We're just currently in virtual reality at the moment.
I wonder if anyone's watching this through Vision Pros.
Wow, there's a thought.
I feel sorry for them because I think we upload in 1080, so it's not even 4K.
I can't wait for that first image of someone doing Zwift. It'll be like a DC Rainmaker. It has to be. Yep. Just Zwifting away, sweat just pouring down their face, but they're living this immersive Alp the Zwift experience. You tempted by one?
I am I don't want to go down a rabbit hole here, but I'm very tempted by one. I don't even think they're that expensive. And I'm waiting to see the first cycling thing that happens with it. Like imagine if someone's ahead of the curve and makes an app or something or integrates it with their platform, and maybe in 3 or 4 years' time, we all have Apple Vision Pro or generic versions.
From a on-bike indoor experience perspective or from a watching cycling perspective?
I don't know. Whether it's like a NorCal, he manages to, in terms of a content experience, if it's that, possibly. I can't imagine riding with the thing on yet. So I can't imagine it's got to do with actually exercising in it. But if YouTube have, if there's like an Apple Vision toggle on YouTube, but it requires a recording in like a proprietary mode with a special camera, and then NorCal manages to do it, and we're like sitting inside a crit like with him.
Oh, there's two things. So I don't know if you saw that mock-up of watching an F1 race, so that that race coverage is on the screen, but then laying out in front of it was like the track, and you have this completely like virtual track in front of you, and you could see the cars, etc., on the track. Like imagine that for a tour stage where you could actually see like the whole map of the stage and where the riders were and etc., and then you could link that into the data and that kind of thing. There's that one. And the other one is, okay, it's not a cycling thing, but like watching an NBA game courtside. There'd be some sort of like, I don't know, telecast experience where you're literally sitting there and it felt like the players were all around you.
What did you think about the price? This was because there was a lot of people saying, it's just too expensive. It's so expensive. And I was looking at it going, coming from the cycling world, that's not, it's freaking giving the thing away. So it's $3,500 USD for a supercomputer on your head with super HD vision and all the advanced computing it's doing for like $3,500. It's fucking cheap as.
That's almost a perfect segue, Jesse, because I do want to talk a bit about the SL8.
Okay.
So supposedly we talk about cycling stuff here.
Okay.
But just came back to it. I thought it's weird because it's one of those numbers where they could have said any number there.
10 grand.
10 grand, 20 grand, 50 grand. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Sure, it's worth it. What? I don't know. Yeah. Is it?
Do you remember back in the day when plasma screen TVs were coming out? Maybe very early 2000s, maybe late 90s, and like some rich kid mate would have one, and they were 15 grand, like for a crappy massive plasma box.
They're about that deep.
Yeah. And that was probably 10, 15 grand 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And people would buy them. And now you've got like a supercomputer on your head with like a gazillion pixels and you're moving stuff around with your hands and it's $3,500.
Yep.
Like, what?
Yeah. Shout out to Luke Mannion who did own one of those ridiculously overpriced. And you went back. It didn't take long. It was like 5 or 6 years. You went back to his house and you're like, oh my God, really? You spent what on this? Yeah.
And the technicians would have to come around because they wouldn't maintain them. It's like you don't set them up and they don't last for 15 years. Yeah. You got to get them. It's like getting your bike serviced.
Needed a forklift to get it into the house as well. Yeah. So SL8, and it kind of felt like it's back in the news. I've been waiting for this video for a long time because Dave Arthur announced I don't know if he announced, but in one of his kind of first look type videos of the SL8, he said that he was going to get the opportunity to hang on to this particular bike for a couple of months, and he was going to give us a longish term review of the bike. And that dropped this week on YouTube on the Just Ride Bikes channel. It was everything I expected it to be and nothing more.
I wish I could be as neutral to it as you, but as someone who's been a fan of Dave Arthur's reviews historically, I think he's gone the wrong direction in this one. I think he's dropped the ball. Because there's a few reasons which I might want to go through. Do you have anything to say before I start really?
No, I want you to go off on it. I just want to clarify that when I said it's exactly what I expected, that's not necessarily a good thing.
Okay.
So continue.
Well, he used to just, if he was reviewing a bike, it would be pretty much a spec sheet read and a very generic, roughly here's how I feel it compared to the other bikes. And that's all you wanted from the Dave Arthur review. Now he's starting to go down avenues of quoting Tour Magazine's aero testing and starting to get more specific with the reviews. And that's where I start to lose it. Couple of things. Firstly, it looked like he was trying to review the bike from somewhat of a racing point of view.
This is interesting. Okay,
but
go
Dave
on.
Arthur doesn't race. He's a total mammal. So what I thought his reviews used to do was, I'm Dave Arthur, this is how I ride, and I'm reviewing the bike. Whereas this was a weird, I'm Dave Arthur, I'm going to quasi-pretend that I sort of race or ride fast and then give my opinions through that filter, which doesn't work. Because if I wanted to know how the SL8 was ridden by someone with a 5 watt per kilo threshold, I would try and find that review elsewhere. I'd ask someone where that is. His opinion of the SL8 as a race bike, I don't care. His opinion of the SL8 as a weekend warrior bike, I did care about, but that's not what he was doing. Am I making sense with that?
Yeah.
For example, right, Phil Guyman reviews a bike. You're getting, how is this bike at climbing hills at 6.5 watts per kilo? That's what you're going to get. If Warren Rossiter reviews a bike, how is it as a 100 kilo weekend warrior? So you kind of know what you're getting. Whereas now, especially with this SL8 one, I'm kind of going, well, I'm watching Dave Arthur review it, but he's kind of reviewing it as a racer. And now I don't know what I can take out of it. I would have, to be honest, preferred he just reviews it as it is for him, leave the racer reviews for the racers to do. Now the problem is it's a freaking race bike. It's not a weekend warrior bike, so it definitely does get difficult. Be like me reviewing a mountain bike. Like what?
Yeah.
Like no, it doesn't work. So that's one of my gripes.
It really danced around this this balance of being the spec sheet read and then trying to give performance insights into the bike. And you're right, like the Tour Magazine thing, when he brought it up, I actually got a little bit like, oh, here we go.
Can I just dig into him mentioning the Tour Magazine testing for a bit? Because he mentioned it, which he hasn't mentioned Tour Magazine testing before.
No.
So he mentioned it, but then didn't spend any time digging into it. It was just, here's how many watts it was in their testing. Okay. But if you're going to do that, you have to go another step further, because he was using it as a way to say the bike was good aerodynamically. But for example, the SL8 with the integrated bar stem is 209 watts in the Tour Magazine aero test. The SL7 with a separate bar and stem was 210. So the aero's the same. So to use that as a qualifier and say, hey, it performs quite well aerodynamically, well, as soon as you've stepped a foot in there, so you then have to provide, I feel like if you're going to do that, you then got to actually go further. I mean, the old Venge was fastest of the two of them. The old Venge was 208 watts with a separate bar stem, not with the integrated. So if you're going to go there, I would like to see more of the critical analysis of, instead of saying the SL8's great because it compares quite well to the other aero bikes, how about you say it still compares quite well to the other aero bikes, but it's no faster than the Venge from 6 years ago, and it's no faster than the SL7 from the previous generation. If you don't include that information, I that's a bit disingenuous to me as someone who's should be providing a review.
I think anytime you're going to review a bike like that, it's going to be just divisive, definitely. And you could see that in the comments. And I don't know, I kind of feel like it is worth removing yourself from there's the specialized haters, and then there's the specialized Kool-Aid drinkers, and they're both very much firmly planted in their corners. People in the middle, the people like us who would actually potentially have some interest in some of the feedback about the bike, I don't really think we played any role in that. And you can kind of see it in the comments. It's either this is overpriced dentists, get over yourselves, or Specialized are market leaders, everyone. Let's hear Dave out, and what he said is very, very grounded in reality.
Am I being biased here? Do you feel this review he did was the same as all the other ones, and I'm just getting my back up to it because maybe I'm a specialized hater deep down? Or do you feel like this was a departure from his regular style?
That's a good question, Joe, because I do think we come with a bit of baggage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was thinking about this today, that I don't know about you, but I was actually listening to his review again today in my earphones.
Sixth listen of a Dave Arthur.
I accounted for half his views, and I'm listening to it in my earphones, so I didn't have the actual video in front of me on the right. And I'm almost like I'm listening to every sentence he says, and I'm ready at the end of every sentence to be angry at it or to have a forthright opinion on it. I don't get like that with any other brand being reviewed. And so, yes, there is definitely some bias that I have.
Can I just talk? There's still this current of undertone of the whole thing that it's another level of bike. That's and maybe that's also why it annoys me.
It's the why would you buy anything else?
Yeah.
That's the phrase.
Okay. Unless I'm living on another planet, can I just for like the 80th time, run through the Tour Magazine's testing?
Take me to Planet Coil. Let's go.
Let's go. It's the same aero as the SL7, and it's slower. It's okay. I shouldn't say that. The aerodynamics between the Venge, the SL7, and the SL8 in Tour Magazine's testing, it's all within 2 watts. They're the same.
Mm-hmm.
And the SL8 had the integrated handlebars.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not any faster in a straight line. So anytime the reviews say the holds at speed, it's just fast, it's the same as the SL7. And the SL7 didn't get the hype for being super quick on the flats. But then the reviewers say, oh, this is so good on the flats, it holds at speed. But it's not, I mean, unless the Tour Magazine has completely cooked their testing, it's the same speed. Firstly, weight-wise, the SL7 was 6.9 in Tour Magazines as built on their scales. The SL8's 6.6. So it is lighter. It's 300 grams lighter. And these are all the reviewers 3 or 4 years ago telling you that weight doesn't matter. And we're going to get there, right? So 300 grams, I think, is significant, but it's a bit rich for the reviewers to be given massive props to the SL8 for a 300 gram difference, which depending on which bike they review, they'll tell you it doesn't matter or it's a game changer. Okay? Wait.
Climbs itself.
Okay. The other thing with the SL8 is they'll go on about this, how it's just because it's the combination, so the stiffness.
Package.
Well, the Tour Magazine stiffness, bottom bracket stiffness on the SL7, they gave a 1.3, 58 newtons per millimeter. Bottom bracket stiffness on the SL8 is 61 newtons per millimeter. So it's 4 newtons more resistant per millimeter to stiffness, and it was that was a 1 rating, their highest rating for the SL8, and it was a 1.3 for the bottom bracket stiffness for the SL7. The lateral stiffness of the fork, so the head tube stiffness was the same rating, was 55 versus 53. The frame comfort measurement, I think they changed. The frame comfort. So the frame comfort, 156 newtons. On the SL8, it was 156, so it's the same comfort. Honestly, honest to God, Tour Magazine's testing All the SL8 is 300 grams lighter.
With some faster handlebars.
With some faster handlebars, which don't make a difference
and
because
you can't
the drag.
and you can't get a handle. You can't get a set. Yeah.
I don't get. Now it's a good bike. It rates well. The SL7 rated well compared to the other bikes. So does the SL8. I'm not saying it's a bad bike. I just still don't quite understand these reviewers that just wet themselves over it. Maybe there's some magic sensation that they get when riding it that the Tour Magazine's testing can't find. Potentially.
Well, this is where I come in with potentially a comment which will piss people off.
Okay.
Because this magic thing that you're talking about, the 300 grams, or what did he build it up as? 6.5 kilos, right?
It's 6.6. It's the SL7 is 6.9.
Okay. So what I think he's suddenly feeling is when he is riding at 280 watts, going full gas up his local climb, that he is going to feel that perceived acceleration more than someone pushing more watts, going kind of faster up the climb.
That definitely makes sense. The bike's lighter. It feels better when you're accelerating because it's lighter. Is that what you mean? Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But that doesn't explain, so sorry, you can go if you want, but that doesn't explain or let people off the hook for the fact that 5 years ago we were being, and there's a great comment. Can I read this comment?
I 100% because there's someone in the comments basically called that out. Yes.
It's Tom Shell's first dance. One thing I do not understand is reviewers like yourself, all said 5 years ago, lightness made a big difference. Then discs, was probably the timing's a bit out here. Then discs came about and they all said that weight doesn't matter as much as aero matters now. Now disc brake bikes are getting light again. Suddenly bikes being light weight makes a difference again. I don't understand how they can say it counts as aero as the Venge, the frame is hardly of the classic aero features, etc., etc., etc. But the time, what he's basically saying is dead on. Like, we were being sold this for the best part of half a decade, that weight doesn't matter and that aero's the dream, and now we're being told that's not the case.
Yes. Now the bikes are not any faster aerodynamically than the models that came out 2 generations ago, but they're 300 or 400 grams lighter as a complete weight, and we're told this is now the revolutionary top of the line bike because it's improved in a metric that you said a couple of years ago didn't really matter.
And I don't have an issue with Specialized doing that. I mean, Specialized have got to sell their bikes, so they're going to try and sell you that. What I don't like is when Dave gets on here and says, if you race, why would you get anything else?
Why would you buy anything else?
Well, I'll tell you why. Because 5 years ago, you were telling me that weight doesn't matter. It's all about my thick aero bike tubes that's making me go fast everywhere.
Get a System 6. Get a System 6. It's 8 kilos. It doesn't matter.
Because it's the quote-unquote fastest bike in the world. And now they're not. And why would you buy anything? Oh, it's that phrase just kept getting me.
I can tell it's stuck in your brain. And that's the crux of it for me, is the reviewers aren't sticking to a criteria of how they're judging the bike. It just changes with whichever way the wind's blowing. If it's a light bike, light is better. If it's an aero bike, aero is everything. If it's really compliant, comfort's everything. And I don't think that's good enough as a reviewer. Now, the thing I always said about Dave was that it doesn't really matter because I'm not going for him for a critical analysis, in-depth review. I'm going for the fast food option.
Free bikes.
Tell us, give us the spec sheet read, show us what it's about. Now I feel like in this video in particular, he was trying to go more of the analysis route. Go back, please go back. It doesn't work. That's the main thing I think I have to say about that, yeah.
I will say there is I had a good look around for other SL8 reviews. They're thin on the ground. They really are thin on the ground. I mean, everything I'm told about these bikes is they've sold really well, especially in the US. Like they're they're sold out. But just the good old-fashioned YouTube reviewer thing just hasn't sort of cut through yet. So, I don't know, maybe that changes.
How many guys have you spoken to where they're like, yeah, I've got an old Giant Propel or a System 6, and they just go, this thing's a dog. Why'd I buy this? And you go, well, like, yeah, you probably should never have bought that. And that's why it matters, because like, people will buy a bike if they believe it's the fastest thing in the world. And that flip-flopping, it impacts what people are buying when they read this stuff. Thankfully, I will say, the SL8 being a more well-rounded bike, we've kind of gone through that phase of selling people a bike that's not suited to them. Like if someone buys an SL8, it is more well-rounded. So it's going to be better than them having bought a Ribble Ultra, for 4 or 5 years ago. So thankfully we're out of that patch. But then the thing is, well, what's the next thing that someone's going to be convinced into buying that's actually not suited for them because the reviewers aren't stuck to
That's a good question. Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it that
there's
way.
nothing sinister in the SL8 where I'm going, oh, someone's going to regret buying that. So I'm thankful for that. What's the next? I mean, I guess hookless maybe, but people aren't really hookless. Probably the thing that would come to mind, but people are quite resistant to hookless. It seems.
Why are we so anti-specialized? Have you ever thought about that? I mean, it's not keeping me up at night, but is it just the fact we don't see many of them? Is it the marketing of it? I don't know. I actually tried to think about this the other day. I don't know why I'm got a little grudge against it.
I'm not anti-specialized in terms of the equipment. I'm anti this over-the-top froth of it, as I explained before. That doesn't really seem to be backed up by anything. I think that's probably it for me. And I feel like, they're on a specialized team. Everyone wants to be on a specialized team. But just that gets pounded into you, and it starts to bug me. And then I'm like, well, hold on. What's wrong with the Super 6? What is it about specialized that gets, like, why is Dave Arthur in that review? He's not getting. They're not paid. They wouldn't be paid. He's not paid off.
No,
he's not a shill. What's got him just so aroused about the bike?
It's full arousal, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
I haven't ridden an SL8. Maybe if I rode one, I'd be the same. But it's like you can't help. It's just like an infection of like S-Works.
Yeah. I know what you mean, though. It's like you could hear it in the voice, everything's just gone up a tone. And it's, why would you race anything else?
But with tarmac, that isn't the case.
Yeah, I don't know. Because he's better than that. He's normally down here. This is good. The gearing's good like this. Yeah, it accelerates quite well, but we just went up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether I have a take on this, but it was progressively announced over the last couple of weeks that there's been quite a few changes with Legion of Los Angeles's sponsorships for 2024. I don't know. People are kind of like, why are you talking about this? Sort of two Australians talking about some US crit team, blah, blah, blah. Well, the reason I am is because basically these guys have been probably, apart from a world tour team, easily the largest marketing hype train I think I've ever seen in cycling. From even bigger than world tour teams, a lot of them. So this kind of thing matters. And I'm pretty sure we had a chat midway through last year where we were talking about some of the incidents that were going on, and we got to a point where we were like, well, what's going on with these sponsors? They don't seem to care that this is the sort of reputation that this team now has. Let me just clarify what's happened. So Specialized have left the team, been replaced by Factor Bikes, which I giggled at. Rafa have left, which I know was a financially very, very big deal for that team. That was a very big sponsorship, and that's been swapped over to ASOS.
Now, are we what's as in like did the sponsors pull out and these are like the second rung they've got to replace?
From what I gather, with Rafa, it did come to the end of their term, but a lot of these things are like 12-month basis stuff. So it's not to pull out. I mean, this is a relationship that's been going for almost 10 years. So it does feel a bit like a
because in other sports, quite often, if there's some sort of controversy or potentially if there's a doping scandal, you'll see brands will come out and say, we're not supporting this and publicly. I haven't seen any of that.
No.
It's just basically...
it was all done at the end of the year as sort of many sponsors kind of roll over and do change. But the reason I kind of thought this was news is for a lot of those brands that we just talked about, Specialized and particularly Rafa, Legion were Rafa's advertising. I mean, I personally feel like they trumped anything EF did in terms of team type stuff. Even just anecdotally riding around Sydney, you would see Legion jerseys. This is Sydney, Australia. You would see Legion jerseys far more often than you would see an EF jersey. As I said when we were talking about this last year, you go to the Australian Rafa homepage and there is Legion on the front page. They were the main photo shoot type thing. So I don't know. I don't know whether I'm giving. Actually, I don't really know whether I'm giving credit to the sponsors for assessing this for where it's at. I don't know what went on behind the scenes. But even on top of that, Legion were very much the poster child or the poster boys for this new generation of crit racing in America. You were seeing those new leagues develop, which they were heavily involved with, that Lion's Den thing, which was very much is them basically almost taking on the responsibility of the sport in general. Whether that continues now with potentially less money involved, I don't know. There's two other things I want to quickly say, and I don't know why, but Corey Williams has left and he's now in Miami, and that's by all accounts been not by mutual agreement.
So he's with Miami Blazers. So he's got the Tag Heuer Sunnies. So I don't know if they're sponsoring both teams. I can see that's a big. He's got a collaborative post with Tag Heuer. That's a big deal. That's a massive deal. They've got 3 million Instagram followers. I'm just seeing this now. That's massive. I wonder, that's impressive. Corey Williams, damn, that's sick. That seems like he's left Legion and he's gone up a level.
Which is kind of interesting, given there are rumors around what took place in 2023 that there are still some unpaid riders from the 2023 roster based on few accounts from people in the US.
Okay, all right. So it seems like so Corey's left. He's going to Miami Blazers, and he looks like it's like a post breakup era he's got. He's like he's flourishing, and then it looks like Justin's still keeping Legion going just with different sponsors. I do think this is good for the US crit scene.
I agree.
It spreads it out a bit more. Like Legion was a joke that have they run their crits, they'd have like 20 teams and 1,000 people, and the marketing was so strong, and it was a success from that angle. But I don't know. I kind of like that it's now a bit more spread out, a bit more love from a financial point of view to some of the other teams now, and it's probably going to make the racing a lot better too.
I have intentions of bringing someone on in the next couple of months who's heavily involved in promotions in the US and the US crit scene to kind of get a idea of actually what's involved financially, getting the teams together, all that kind of stuff. So that's potentially coming up. Yeah, I think you're right. Probably a good call in the long run. So I want to talk about my one by setup. Okay. And you've got no interest.
I don't. This is in the notes. For everyone listening, this is in the notes, and Chris is wrote me a thesis on one by setup. I'm like, are we going to talk? Like,
I really
Are we
want to
talking about
I
this?
want to talk about one by.
All right. Okay.
I mean, it's easily the most questions I get on all kinds of things is about the one by
I
stuff.
find that really surprising.
Really? Yeah.
Just don't use it unless you live in Florida.
So
Just
you're-
use 2-by. I just don't get it.
Okay.
Unless you just want your bike to look cool or you live somewhere it's dead flat, just run 2-by and stop asking Chris about 1-by. That's my opinion. I don't convince me otherwise.
I don't really want to try and convince you otherwise. I just want to really give a little bit. I really want to talk a little bit about the experience of using it, which has its limitations because you have one front chainring, okay? Like that is very much the case. So like as I've said in the past, for those of you who don't know, I'm running a 50 front tooth and a 1033 rear cassette. And that 50 to 33 is like running the old 3925. Now, at this point, we're just going to put the camera on me because Jesse's going to fall asleep. So that's what. So it's like the old 3925.
Okay, that's a hard gear.
It's a gear to push, and the step down from that. So if you're actually in that 33 and you then shift up a gear, you're going to a 28. So that's quite a shift from the 33 to the 28.
What do you mean that's like running a 28? What's like running a 28?
No, so the next gear down, so it's a 33 tooth, and then the next gear down is a 28 tooth. Oh, right. So that's what I'm saying is that's actually the biggest jump in the cassette.
I see what you mean. In terms of like a cadence change.
Correct.
Okay, yeah,
so
I see.
Example, like if I'm climbing in that 33, like on the steep section of a Kuna, you can keep a really nice sort of cadence in that 33, but as it starts to sort of crest out a little bit in that midsection and you go into the 28, you're like, oh, that's a bigger gear. That's more of a shift than you're kind of used to, all right? So that's like climbing on a 1-by, yeah,
I might also add, you're going up a Kuna steep.
Yes.
You're 65 kilos.
Yes.
Threshold above 300 watts.
Yes.
Like that's very fit. Imagine that for someone whose threshold is 260 watts at 75 kilos, which should probably be closer to the mean.
It's not the right setup.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay.
Absolutely. I'm not gonna disagree with that.
Okay.
But the limitations around the gearing, right? Like you can work that out. You can go to a gearing calculator thing online and be like, okay, well this is what this particular gearing allows me to do. So that's all marked out in front of you. I don't want to try and sell this to you. I couldn't really give a shit if you're going to do this or not. But what I kind of think is interesting, specifically about the way SRAM have done this, is they've almost sort of gamified cycling or this niche of the equipment world. If you want to fully go into the ecosystem, so if you just fully embrace SRAM ecosystem life, okay, and you're going to run a mountain bike, you've got a gravel bike, and you've got a road bike. All of a sudden, all those parts become interchangeable. So the one time that I went down south, I had the opportunity to put the Explorer derailleur on and a 1044 on with a 50-tooth chainring. What are you laughing at?
Who's doing that?
People.
Who?
People are doing it.
Oh, great. You want to go ride some hills? Change your derailleur. Adjust the limit screws.
Yep.
Tension the B. Like, what?
This is but it's doable. I'm trying to point out it's doable.
Take the chain off. Put the chain back on.
Yep. You can do it in under 20 minutes. It's really not hard. It's really actually bloody simple to do. I did it.
What's more simpler is just having 2-by and just not doing it in the first place.
And as I said to you in the very beginning, this is for people who want to fully...
Sorry, you're not selling it to me. You just... Okay.
If you just want to fully, absolutely go down this route.
Okay.
And like, Now, that said...
Oh, you also need to buy a second $800 rear derailleur.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. And that could also be on your... I I don't know why I'm trying to defend this. I'm just saying that it's doable. So and there are plenty of people out there who have a gravel bike. So they have the gravel bike set up on that bike if they want to, and they can slap that on their road bike. It's all interchangeable. Pair it within seconds. Like
this is the ultimate, Chris. So I'm just going to go on tangent here. This is where you said you have one bike to do it all. Have one rear derailleur to do it all. All you elitists with 3 rear derailleurs. Now just change the wheels over, change the rear derailleur, change the chain. Now you can just run, but as long as you got a frame set and handlebars,
yep,
you're good to go.
All you do
just
is
a quick strip and rebuild, and you're off.
You just put a separate derailleur in the car, drive out, and away you go. Yep. But mark my words, Jesse. Mark my words. This is where, as the gearing ratios, and we're probably going to see that later on this year, become bigger in the road space, that more and more people will try and doing this. Definitely. And as I said in the beginning, if you fully embrace the ecosystem, if you get the Vision Pros with your Apple Watch and your everything else in there, it's all gonna work potentially together. Okay. I mean, I was kind of fascinated by it because when I thought, okay, I want to do this full Kool-Aid build and go one by on it, I'm certain that the limitations of it would just be laughable. Can kind of get around it.
And especially because you've still got a 50-tooth front ring.
Yes.
Like, and a 50-10 is huge.
Yes.
You could easily go to a 48 or even lower, and you're probably not going to be spinning out. Even a 46, like a 46-10, you're probably aero tucking by the time you've spun that out anyway. And then that jump at the top end of the cassette is not going to be as much because it's a smaller front ring.
If you were going to try and make this your one bike with the one by setup, 100%, you would put something beginning with a 4 as your front chain ring. No two ways about it. But there is something like, and I use this phrase like gamifying cycling. And I don't want I couldn't give a shit about SRAM, whatever, but at least it feels like they've got a plan for what they're selling us or going to sell you in the future. Like the fact that you could just take a derailleur off, put another one on, put a ridiculous 1044 cassette on, like, and I can do this in under 20 minutes. There's no cables. It's just pairing. Done.
Okay. Yep.
It feels like I don't want to say it. I was going to say like the future of cycling, but it feels like you're in the future cycling.
Okay, I'm going to back down. 100%. I think, like for me with what I'm doing, I would never change my gear ratios really anyway, so it doesn't matter. But if that's where we're going, and people are one bike to do it all, like seriously, like that's going to get more popular. As much as I would like to take the piss out of it, and you need your easy gearing for a gravel setup, and then you want to go harder gearing on the same bike, and that means a derailleur change, cassette change, and it's that easy. I mean, it's kind of like this Apple ecosystem thing where right now you're kind of in it for the gains you're going to get in the future because you know that eventually it's going to come out and then you're going to want to be in it. So you kind of stay there. And yeah, like if SRAM keep making all these changes easier, then I'm with you. But you have to be doing the type of riding where it's going to be. I just know how I ride.
A one by setup is perfect for you.
Yeah,
100%. Mm-hmm. The only time it wouldn't work for you is if you went and did like the Snowy Classic or something like that, where you've got to get up Bolocka. And what I'm saying to you is, in that particular circumstance, you can get around it.
Okay, so what do you do? Can you run me through this setup? One thing I have with gearing now I'd like to fix is this situation. I run my crit gearing with 2x, let's say a 55-42 front and an 11-28 rear cassette. And then I'm going to go and do Snowy Classic, but I want to have a compact chain ring. So right now what I have to do is either completely swap the chain set out or just change the chain rings. But then that's a rear derailleur height change. So that's a finicky thing. If you get that wrong, you're dropping your chain. So I don't touch that now. I basically just use a 53-39 for everything. It's not the best climbing gear and it's not the best road race top end speed gear, right? So how would I do this with one by in terms of the rear derailleur? So I run a. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Well, it's going to be more expensive.
Yeah, okay.
Well, maybe not because then you wouldn't have had to buy the front derailleur in the first place.
So I buy a 50. I have a 50 on the front.
Yep.
And then for most of my riding, I run your setup. You have now a 1033.
1033.
I'm going to do Sonoma Classic. I've got to get up Bolocka.
Yep. You're going to need 3 things.
Okay.
You're going to need a Explorer derailleur. You're going to need a 1044. Well, you probably don't need quite that much. You might need a 1040, and you'll need a new chain.
Okay.
And you will have to do, again, I managed to do this, but actually removing the derailleur, pairing it up is like easier than pairing your phone to your...
Can I just ask, on the derailleur, why do you need the road derailleur? Does the Explorer derailleur work with a 33? Can't you just use the bigger cage derailleur for the easier gear?
You could.
I mean, it'd be a bit ugly, but it'd work.
Yes, you could run a Explorer derailleur full time.
Okay. And then that would save buying the... I mean, it wouldn't... If you bought the entire group set, it wouldn't come like that. But
what Vegan does, Vegan has a mountain bike derailleur, runs it full time, has a 1050 something back there. I don't know what it is.
Okay.
And that's his full time.
But you could still run that with an easier cassette, so the jumps between the gears aren't as big for your road stuff.
Correct.
You could still do that. Okay. Yep. And then you just have a spare chain that you're using with the bigger cassette.
Yep.
And then, okay, so take wheels off, cassette swap.
Yep.
Potentially you just leave the same derailleur on. You just probably B-screw adjustment.
Yep.
Clear the bigger cogs in the cassette.
That was it.
That's it.
Yep.
Damn. Okay.
And
am I missing something? That seems like pretty...
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Again, this is something I managed to do.
Okay.
Like, I wouldn't know how to start bleeding a disc brake. I mean, absolutely no idea.
Okay.
Whereas this kind of makes sense to me. Yeah. Now, yes, there's going to be chain inefficiencies once you start getting into your 50-40 area. You're probably going to be losing 6-7 watts, definitely.
Okay.
But for the rest of it, yeah.
Okay. Now, could you do this with Shimano? Because you can run one by with Shimano. But, because you don't have the 10 tooth. That's the stitch up.
Yep.
So then your biggest gear is a 50-11, which is too small for me.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so it doesn't work on, it wouldn't work Shimano.
No.
Yep. Okay.
Handpag?
Why are we laughing?
I don't know. God, that's sad, isn't it? Wasn't that long ago? 2020, we were running that. Yeah. I guarantee you, like, the what is it now? The 1036 at the moment on road is the max that red derailleur will allow.
Okay.
I reckon that new red, we're getting at least 2 more cogs back there.
That's so you can then run.
So you'll have a road derailleur running 1038.
Cassette swap. Jeez, yeah. So then you're basically just cassette swap
and chain swap. I can't believe it. I almost sold you on it by the end of that.
I haven't tried it, and I'm not into gear, so there's probably people in the comments like, you got that totally wrong. But from what we've just discussed then, literally that was purely off the cuff. I can see how that would solve a problem I have right now with the 2x.
I'm standing behind. I'm standing behind everything we said. I reckon everything there is as technically accurate as you can expect from the Nero Show, pretty much. I did just want to say, just before I wrap this up, it's friggin' amazing how many people either ask questions or are kind of fascinated about my riding experience, and I'm sure you get this as well. It's bloody awesome. I really appreciate it. I don't get back to everyone. Apologies, but do keep the questions coming, and hopefully what I tend to try and do is we'll eventually talk about it here. That's the idea.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
If you don't get an answer DM-wise, this
is a perfect example. You're like, I want to talk about one by. And then coming into this, I was like, fuck, why do I want to talk about one by? And now I have discovered potential improvement in my riding experience just from that 10-minute chat we had. Rate it.
Rapid fire 50-minute club. Jesse, hit me. What do you got?
Yeah, first thing was TrainerRoad YouTube channel. They did a really good video essentially debunking athletic greens, basically going into the research on the ingredients that are in athletic greens and the amounts of those ingredients, and basically coming to the conclusion that a lot of the ingredients that do have research are underdosed, and a whole bunch of the ingredients don't have much research, so it's probably not a good place to spend your money. And I just thought it was a quite was very well put together video, well edited, concise, and it was just a tasteful way to actually add value to a discussion, as opposed to some of the stuff we've seen in cycling, which tends to be more like the Hambini style kind of shit throwing things, which some of it's good facts based, and then some of it ends up just being sort of general shit throwing. And I thought, yeah, the way TrainerRoad did that video was really cool. I kind of rated it.
Athletics greens, soft target. You know how like we've had this chat before, but like it's easy to give out about certain brands on there, like Campy. Like it sounds like you're being controversial saying Campy's irrelevant, but it's not really. It's just a soft target.
No.
Is athletic greens not? Okay.
No, not athletic greens, because when you have the godfather of science fact-based content, Huberman, come on and basically say the product is filling all the holes in your nutritional needs, blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, the sort of the holier than thou attitude he kind of has of, I am the godfather of research and science, and then the supplement you're promoting doesn't hold up. I think that's not a soft target. Okay. That's like prime, perfect target, I would say. I just wanted to push back on you just for the sake of it. Okay.
But can you pause the video? Have you got the video up there?
I don't.
I want you to pause the video at 2 minutes and 52 seconds. And I want you to tell me what that shot looks like. Does that remind you of any other YouTuber's shot?
Oh, it looks like Dylan Johnson.
100% ripoff. Like that is
the race numbers.
A legit, straight up. I've messaged him, but it's just a total ripoff. It's so funny. But sorry, Dylan, your production value just is getting absolutely smashed by the TrainerRoad. Geez, the cutaways and everything going on in there. That was all happening. Can we talk about while we're scattergunning? Can I talk about Chris Horner? Chris Horner's corner. Horner's corner. The butterfly effect. Is Chris Horner the new Duran rider?
Yeah. It's
mate, you just gotta get out there on your rim brakes, throw up at the top of the hill, and then you've done an interval. Get out there, son. And I need a $7,000 skin suit.
He's one of those people you just have to kind of listen to through one ear and don't think about it too much. And just go for like the message he's sending. Do not spend any time digging into the details, or you'll just lose your mind. Like I won the Volta without doing intervals, so don't do it. Like what are you saying? What are you saying? But then the principle of the video was something along the lines of make sure your nutrition is good and you're well recovered. I'm on board. But then he does it by don't do it. I'm like, no, why? Because,
So this is, I'm so glad you picked that up, because it's exactly the same thing that bugged me about it. Because the message, it's a bit like Duran Rider some of the times. The message, the core message, which can often be hidden at around the 8-minute mark, is really valuable and really useful. The whole other crap at the front about, you don't need you don't need a $7,000 skin suit to swap off at your local bunch rate. Hey, you got, when I was out at my local bunch rate and I didn't have a $7,000, when I was a professional for 25 years, I didn't have $7,000. Like, that's just slop. But hidden at the back of that video is a really, really good message, and it's really clear.
Focus on right when you're getting into your main fitness area, when you want to come to your main objective, whether if it's the Grand Fondo or the Tour de France, it's the weeks leading up to that event which are the most important.
Basically saying the way to if you want to concentrate your time or your effort is to really try and create a buffer around your event zone, or when that period of time is, the month leading up, try and reduce the stresses in your life at that period because it's when you're going to be the most fatigued, et cetera, and that will allow you to do the best performance. Brilliant advice. Brilliant.
To be fair, some people, that cuts through to some people though. There's some people that love that just super hyper simplified, almost to the point of absurdity. If that gets the message through and it's a net win at the end, then fair play. And then the people on Weight Weenies forum or TrainerRoad forum are like, oh, he said intervals don't work. Like, yeah, that video is probably not for you anyway. So fair enough. So that's why I want to give it, actually, like, my take on it is actually giving it, I'm going to say give it credit.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the message is good.
Agreed.
I feel like.
100% agree.
From the ones I've seen.
100% agree.
I'm not going to get, like, sand in my crutch about how he's delivering the message or what he said about intervals. So fair play.
You know what I reckon's happening? I reckon his son, who edits the videos, is saying you got to be like clickbaity YouTubey at the front.
I feel like the last 3 weeks,
Yeah.
it seems like he's just gone, all right, let's go.
Let's
Every
go.
topic,
Let's hit him.
I'm just doing the durian rider angle of like absurdity around it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
they're working because they're all in my homepage.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of...
He's the most, when people message me about getting people on the show, he's the one person people always ask about getting on. So, Chris, if you're out there, let us know if you're interested. Are you familiar with the phenomenon that is the Run Club?
I am. For two reasons. Firstly, it's in my algorithm. I don't know how. I don't run. I'm not into running. For somehow, Instagram wants me to join a run club. So I've seen it there. And then also, I was in Centennial Park last weekend on a Saturday morning. There's these packs of like 30, 40 just joggers. And they're not park run people. They're not hard out run squads. It's just run club taking over Centennial Park. It's like a bunch ride, but they're running 100%.
So I've come at it from a different perspective. I didn't see any of this online.
Okay.
None of it. And then all of a sudden, like you, I started seeing, I don't know what the collective noun is for runners. I'm going to just run with peloton of runners, but it's phenomenal. It's just a pack of mixed gender, mixed ability joggers all sort of shuffling along together. And it's quite, at the same time, I feel like there's been this reduction in the, 'cause often you would see the set, and it still a little bit exists, but the kind of boot club setup. So you'd see the weights on the ground, the kettlebells, all this type of thing, and there'd be this big collective group of people swinging kettlebells around at 5 a.m. in the morning. That seems to have kind of died out a little bit, and this has been replaced by the run club. Since then, I have gone ahead and found all this online, and holy shit, it's all over Instagram particularly. A couple of things I don't understand from it. There seems to be an obsession with running with full headphones.
Oh, yeah.
You got to have your over your ears. Like the last couple of weeks in Sydney, it's been disgustingly humid, like 90%, like low 30 degrees. You just walk outside, you're sweating. I cannot imagine what it is like with those headphones on.
Like AirPods Max or
It's
whatever.
just, like what are you doing? But it seems, I don't know, like super inclusive. But it's funny, has this just appeared from influencers? Is this an
Seemingly so.
influencer thing?
But it's not cool to just go to the gym anymore. I feel like that crowd now is you've got getting more of these. Who's the guy
Which one? Oh, Mark Lewis?
Mark Lewis. Yeah, I was going to call him the TRT guy. I feel bad. He's now just the TRT guy. He does more of that, but that style of kind of that. I'm a hybrid athlete. Where it's like I'm kind of very poor at cardio, but I also go to the gym. That's now the cool thing. It's like I go to the gym, but then I also do my cardio. But it's not cardio anymore. Now I do run club. I do so, which is good. It means people are doing some aerobic activity, not just going
So
around the gym doing exercise.
You think these people have come from CrossFit?
I think they've come from the gym.
Right.
So the person that used to just be back buys and tries
Now trotting
is
around.
now back buys, tries, and 5Ks with a run club. And yes, I think the people where are the circuit people on the with the yoga mat and the trainer? They've seen to go on too.
Is there a Huberman Attia element to this? Is the run club trot? Is that a zone 2 trot?
I am almost certain there is a
Interesting.
carryover there. Yeah, it's like the zone 2. It's your lower intensity day. You do run club.
Yeah, run club.
Yeah, and so that your Tabata, that was what they always used to do was like 10 seconds on, 20 seconds off. It was like the Japanese invented this. Whereas that's not good anymore. So you do weights and run club.
Influencer powered fitness phenomenon.
What's the cycling equivalent then? I feel like we're so boring. What's the roadie equivalent of like run club? Because we used to have Everesting. That was the thing. But that was quite like elite. There was also the Strava phase, kind of like segment chasing. We don't seem to have that many. Like,
It's not a mass
trends.
participation thing. I reckon the influencer buzz thing at the moment in cycling is bikepacking,
Oh yeah.
and you kind of make that look sort of like sexy, really, because you've got like sunsets and your North Face gear on, and that's the like sexy bikepacking is your influencer trend.
Do you feel like the trends in cycling that would be equivalent to the run club thing is more about the equipment and less about the actual exercise portion?
Yeah, probably.
Like you don't see the fitness crowd or the gym crowd or the run club crowd are about the actual exercise, whereas a lot of the influencer culture in cycling is about what they're wearing or the OSPW. And you get the odd kind of, I would say, sort of cringy, inspiration-based sort of Instagram reel of some guy riding with a quote. But a lot of it seems to be more like almost performance car culture.
Yeah.
Of like, I've got a souped-up S-Works.
Yeah, but I think that kind of undersells cycling a bit. And I think you said this to me when we saw the peloton of runners running around, and we were both, and you sort of said, "Oh yeah, they'll be doing something else in 2 years. Like they'll move on. That group of people will move on to the next trend, whatever it is. They're not like cyclists. Most cyclists, all cyclists that end up on this channel, like they're in it for life, probably, or the best part of their life. Like they're going down rabbit holes that the run clubbers aren't. And they're probably there's a bit more, it's a bit more of a sustainable long-term thing.
Mm-hmm.
As sad as we are, it's easy to just turn up to a run club and trot around for a summer, and you probably will move on to something else. It is harder that the barriers to us are bigger, but I don't know, the gains are...
Yeah, you're more, yeah.
You're going to be talking gearing and one by like for another year. Run club, your chat's probably what's your zone too. All right, lastly, quick update. Catherine did win her swimming race last week. It's the first race as a human she's ever won, like competitive sports thing. And she's not a competitive person by any stretch of the imagination, or at least didn't think she was. And, she sort of gets out of the pool and she like comes over and she's like, "Oh, I won." And then you can kind of see this thing come over this child of like, I feel good. And it's like, it's interesting seeing that come across someone because, they've never experienced that before. And then I'm like, I think I said something like, "Oh, is it a good feeling?" And it's like, yeah, it was really good. Like I beat, yeah, you did.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, cool. So I don't know. It's bad news for Chris because I think that potentially means the penny has dropped and she wants to try and keep swimming, but that's all right. So we'll see. Any updates yourself?
Nothing. How do you keep that in check though? Like you beat Lily,
Mm.
in a swimming race. I don't know. Do you just let that stir and just and actually feed it to try and make her better?
No.
Or you go, actually, no, you beat her in swimming, but
Let it lie. Like there was a situation there with like this one, like the kid won, and like the dad because they were timing the races, and the dad goes over to the person timing it as his daughter finishes, and like asks the timer, "Oh, what time did she do?" And you could see he was like disappointed. Like the kid won fucking half the bloody pool, and he was like disappointed with her. And like then there was this weird interaction where the kid gets out of the pool, and the dad's like, oh, yeah, you won, but let's have a look at the time you did here. I'm like, Jesus, like really? I mean, that's probably what it takes.
Yeah.
It's like anything. Like she'll reach a point where it's like, oh, now I'm being flogged by everyone.
What about this? So, Young Australian of the Year was.
I didn't see this.
You didn't see this?
No.
So let me set the context here. The Australians of the Year, open category, was a man or woman that involved in cancer research. I think they coming up with not a cure, but a treatment option for melanoma. So, fair play.
Achieved.
Yeah, you're contributing,
Congrats.
right? The Young Australian of the Year was Emma McKeon, the swimmer.
Oh, the swimmer.
Swim
Paid
fast.
professional
And you get paid to
athlete.
do it.
Yeah, that's an
Isn't
awkward
that a
one.
reflection of Australian, like, what we're... It's like...
Yeah, but then you start
swim
getting into the
fast.
argument of like, oh, but she's inspiring people to... And I think with her particular situation, there is a bit of this that she is very good at the grassroots level, trying to get people into the sport and fit and healthy and active and this type of thing. Yeah. But you're right. I mean,
Australian of the Year?
oh, but we've always done that. Like Steve Waugh was like Australian of the Year. Like it's always been a bit of a.
She wasn't like a refugee from Iran, and like she went to Illawarra Grammar, and she's good looking, blonde. Like she's really fantastic swimmer and is good role model for the sport. But like the standout under 30 Australian human being is a good swimmer.
Cadell get Australian of the year he won it? I reckon he did. Thorpe definitely
They'd
did.
throw him an OAM or something. Member of Order. Oh, that is
Order of
AM.
Australia.
Oh, I thought it was an OAM. Okay, yeah, they did give him an Order of Australia.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right. Well, on that bombshell, Jesse, we will see you next week.
See you then.
You know.